Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling something that's got everyone buzzing: Onyx Coin. Now, you might have heard whispers, maybe caught a few headlines, but we're going beyond the hype. We're going to really get into what makes Onyx Coin tick, all right?
It's definitely got people talking, that's for sure.
So joining me for this deep dive, we've got, as always, a true expert in the field, ready to break it down for us.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Onyx Coin, or XCN as you might see it out there, it's not just your average cryptocurrency.
Okay, so right off the bat, you're saying there's something different here.
Yeah, right off the bat, it's the native cryptocurrency of the Onyx protocol. And that's where things get interesting.
Okay, hold on. For those of us who, maybe haven't been living and breathing crypto 24/7, what's a native cryptocurrency?
So think of it like this. The Onyx protocol, it's this whole blockchain ecosystem, right, with a big mission. It wants to connect traditional finance, like the stuff we all use every day, with the world of blockchain. And to do that, it needs its own fuel, its own internal currency. That's XCN.
So XCN isn't just some token you buy hoping the price goes up. It's got a real job to do within this whole Onyx protocol.
Right. It powers the whole thing. It unlocks the features, the tools, everything.
Right.
Without XCN, the protocol wouldn't really function.
Okay, so utility is a big word in the crypto world these days. So we're talking about real utility here.
Exactly.
Now, something else I kept seeing when I was prepping for this everywhere I looked, this idea of Onyx Coin, bridging the gap. What gap?
Right. So that's a key part of their whole vision. They want to make it easier for businesses, institutions, the folks who are used to the traditional financial world to step into blockchain.
Which, let's be honest, can be kind of intimidating, right?
Yeah, it can be. Lots of jargon, new concepts, a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
So Onyx Coin and the Onyx protocol, they're designed to smooth that transition, make it accessible.
So if I'm a business owner and I've heard all this buzz about blockchain, like it can streamline my supply chain, make things more transparent, all that, but I have no idea where to even begin.
Well, that's where Onyx Coin comes in.
It's like the on-ramp.
Exactly, the on-ramp to the blockchain highway. It simplifies things. So even if you're not a crypto expert, you can still use it.
So I could, start using smart contracts, look into tokenizing assets, all that jazz, without needing a computer science degree.
Yeah, that's the idea. And this is why Onyx Coin is getting so much attention in the DeFi space, decentralized finance.
Ooh, DeFi. Always a hot topic. But for the uninitiated, like my grandma who keeps asking me about this stuff, what is DeFi? And where does Onyx Coin fit in?
Okay, so think of DeFi as taking all the things you do with regular banks and financial institutions, lending, borrowing, earning interest, and moving it all onto the blockchain.
Cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. No more banks, no more intermediaries. It's all peer-to-peer, transparent, and often a lot more efficient.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal. But what role does Onyx Coin play in this whole DeFi world?
It's the fuel. Like, you want to use a DeFi lending platform built on Onyx, you'll use XCN. Want to borrow crypto using your XCN as collateral. Onyx Coin makes it happen.
So you're saying it's not just some theoretical concept. There are real practical applications here.
Real, practical, and growing all the time. And Onyx Coin's right at the center of it.
So it's like the gateway drug to DeFi.
Maybe not the best analogy.
Okay,
but you get the idea. It makes DeFi more accessible, less intimidating. And that's huge.
Totally. Now, another thing that caught my eye with Onyx Coin, and this seems kind of unique, is this whole thing about users having a voice.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. That's their governance model.
Okay, so break it down for us. Governance, we hear that word thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in this context?
So remember how we said Onyx is all about decentralization? Well, that's not just about the tech. It's about decision-making, too.
Interesting.
XCN holders, they get to vote on proposals, on changes, on how the whole protocol evolves.
So it's like a democracy, but for crypto.
Kinda. You're voting on the future of the project, not for a politician. And that gives users ownership. They're not just along for the ride, they're in the driver's seat.
Wow, that's so different from the traditional financial world, right? Where you kind of just have to trust the big institutions are doing what's best.
Exactly. Onyx Coin flips the script. It's about community, about giving users control.
Okay, so we've laid some groundwork here. We know what Onyx Coin is, at least on a basic level. We know it's about connecting traditional finance with blockchain, and it's got this unique governance thing going on. But I want to go deeper. I want to understand the tech, the nitty-gritty, what makes Onyx Coin tick, where do we even start?
Well, to really get Onyx Coin, we got to understand the Onyx protocol itself. That's where the magic happens.
All right, let's get technical then.
Right.
What's the secret sauce of this protocol? Hit me with it.
So the Onyx protocol, it's built for speed and efficiency. Like that was their main focus from day one.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If a blockchain can't handle a lot of transactions quickly, it's not going to be very useful.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to bring in all these businesses and institutions.
Exactly. Think about a global payment system.
Yeah.
It needs to handle millions of transactions, maybe even billions per second.
And it's got to do it smoothly without getting bogged down.
Yep. And Onyx, they design their protocol to be able to scale to meet those demands. They're thinking long term.
All right, so speed and efficiency, check. But what about security? I feel like every other week there's a news story about some blockchain getting hacked. So how does Onyx Coin address that? How do they make sure people's funds are safe?
So security, it's absolutely crucial, right? Onyx Coin, they take this very seriously. They're using some of the most advanced cryptography out there, and they've had multiple independent audits looking for any weaknesses, any vulnerabilities.
So they're basically trying to make it as bulletproof as possible.
As possible, yeah. And because it's decentralized, there's no single point of failure. It's not like hacking into one central server. You'd have to compromise a huge portion of the network, which is incredibly difficult.
Okay, so we've got speed, efficiency, security, all the building blocks of a solid blockchain project. But I still want to know more about those real-world applications. We touched on supply chains earlier, but what are some other ways businesses are using Onyx Coin right now?
Oh, there's a ton. But one that's getting a lot of traction is digital identity.
Digital identity. Okay, that's intriguing.
Yeah. So instead of having your personal information scattered all over the internet, with different companies, websites, social media platforms, you have one secure, verifiable digital identity powered by Onyx Coin.
So I control it, I own it, and it's all in one place.
Exactly. And that's powerful, right? It gives individuals more control over their data, which is a big deal these days.
Huge deal, especially with all the data breaches and privacy concerns we hear about all the time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so supply chains, digital identity, what else? What other exciting use cases are you seeing out there?
Ooh, well, there's this whole movement towards decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs.
DAOs, another acronym. I'm starting to get lost in the crypto alphabet soup here.
It's a lot, I know. But DAOs, they're basically organizations that are run by code, by smart contracts. And Onyx Coin is playing a role in enabling these DAOs to function, to manage their treasuries, to make decisions in a transparent and democratic way.
So it's like taking the power away from centralized authorities and distributing it to the community.
Exactly. It's about empowering people, giving them more control over the organizations they're a part of. And this could apply to anything from charities to businesses to social groups.
Wow. Okay, so we've got supply chains, digital identity, DAOs. It's starting to feel like Onyx Coin can be used for almost anything.
It's got a lot of potential, that's for sure.
Now, I want to circle back to that governance model again,
Yeah.
because I think it's one of the most fascinating aspects of Onyx Coin. So how does it actually work in practice? Like, if I'm holding XCN, what can I actually vote on?
Well, say there's a proposal to add a new feature to the Onyx protocol, or maybe to change some parameters, how transaction fees work, something like that. Anyone holding XCN can submit a proposal outlining their idea, and then all the XCN holders get to vote on it.
So it's not just some theoretical idea. It's a real functioning system where users have a tangible impact.
Absolutely. The proposals that get the most votes, those are the ones that get implemented.
So if enough people disagree with the direction the project is going, they can actually change it.
Exactly. It's a real democracy in action, and that appeals to a lot of people in the crypto space, They're tired of centralized control. They want to be part of something that's truly community-driven.
I get it. It's like you're not just investing in a project, you're becoming part of a movement.
That's a good way to put it.
All right, so we've talked about the tech, the governance, the potential applications. Now let's get down to the brass tacks, the tokenomics of XCN. What can you tell us about its supply, distribution, all that good stuff?
One of the most important things to know about XCN is that it has a fixed supply.
Fixed supply. Okay, so that means there's only a limited number of XCN tokens that will ever exist.
Right. No funny business with printing more tokens later on.
Which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because that can dilute the value of a cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. And when it comes to distribution, XCN is allocated in a way that's designed to support the long-term health of the ecosystem.
So who gets those precious XCN tokens? Spill the beans.
All right. So A portion goes to the development team, of course. That's to ensure continued development, innovation, keeping the project moving forward.
Makes sense. Got to incentivize the people who are building the thing.
Right. And then another chunk goes to the community through various initiatives like airdrops, grants, stuff like that.
So they're actively trying to grow the community, get more people involved.
Exactly. And then there's a portion reserved for enterprise partners, the businesses that are building on the Onyx protocol.
So it's a pretty diverse distribution aimed at supporting all the different parts of the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's about creating a sustainable model where everyone benefits from the success of Onyx Coin.
So holding XCN isn't just about hoping price goes to the moon. It's about being part of this whole thing, participating in its growth, its evolution. Now, we've touched on this idea of utility before, but I want to dig a little deeper. What can I actually DO with XCN within the Onyx protocol? Like, what are some real concrete examples?
Okay, so first off, XCN is used to pay transaction fees on the network.
So kind of like gas fees on Ethereum.
Yeah, similar concept.
Mm.
But Onyx Coin is designed to be more efficient, more cost-effective than some other blockchains out there. And then there's governance, of course. You need XCN to vote on those proposals we talked about.
Right, right.
And the more XCN you hold, the more voting power you have. Your voice gets amplified.
Okay, so it's not just one person, one vote. It's weighted based on how much XCN you're holding.
Exactly. And then there's the big one, staking.
Staking. We keep dancing around this. It seems like a pretty big deal in the Onyx Coin world.
It is. So staking is all about contributing to the security and stability of the Onyx network.
Okay, I'm listening.
Essentially, you lock up a portion of your XCN to help validate transactions and secure the blockchain.
So it's like I'm putting my XCN to work, helping to maintain the network.
Exactly. You become part of the consensus mechanism, helping to make sure everything runs smoothly. And in return for staking your XCN, you earn rewards.
Rewards, huh? Like what?
You get a percentage of the transaction fees generated by the network.
So I'm not just holding XCN, hoping the price goes up. I'm actively participating in the network and earning passive income.
Exactly. You're supporting the network and you're getting rewarded for it. It's a win-win.
All right, so it seems like Onyxcoin has really thought through all the different ways XCN can be used. It's not just a speculative asset. It's a functional token that plays a vital role in the whole Onyx protocol. But let's be realistic for a moment. What are some of the challenges Onyxcoin might face in achieving these ambitious goals? I mean, it's a tough world out there for crypto projects.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Even with all the amazing tech and the passionate community, there are always hurdles. One of the biggest ones is regulation. The crypto landscape is constantly changing, and governments are still figuring out how to approach it.
True, true. And even though Onyxcoin has a lot going for it, the technology, the growing adoption, it's still relatively new, right? It takes time to build trust, to establish a solid track record.
That's right. Adoption takes time, especially when you're talking about bridging the gap between traditional finance and blockchain. There's a learning curve for businesses. Convincing these big institutions to embrace a new technology, it's not always a quick process. They like to move slowly, carefully.
And let's not forget about competition. The DeFi space is getting pretty crowded these days. New projects are popping up all the time. So Onyxcoin needs to constantly innovate, stay ahead of the curve, show why it's the best option out there.
Absolutely. The crypto world, it's dynamic. You got to be adaptable, got to keep evolving.
You got to be like a chameleon.
Maybe not a chameleon, but you get the point.
I do. Now, is there anything else, any other challenges that you think people should be aware of when it comes to Onyxcoin, or even just the crypto space in general?
Yeah, there's one that often gets overlooked, and it's a big one, education.
Education. Okay, elaborate on that.
So for Onyxcoin to really achieve mass adoption, for it to reach its full potential, people need to understand it. And I don't just mean the tech, I mean the potential impact, what this could mean for the world.
So we need to demystify blockchain and DeFi, break it down for the average person.
Exactly. Make it accessible to everyone, not just the tech-savvy folks. Because there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty around crypto, A lot of people are hesitant to even dip their toes in.
Yeah, I get that. It can be a bit intimidating if you don't know where to start.
Right. So education is key. We need to break down those barriers, explain things clearly, show people how Onyxcoin can actually benefit their lives.
It's about empowering people with knowledge so they can make informed decisions.
Exactly. And it's not about hyping up Onyxcoin as the next big thing. It's about providing clear, accurate information, letting people decide for themselves.
Okay, so education, big challenge, but also a big opportunity. If people understand the potential, then that could really drive adoption.
Absolutely. And that's where communities, content creators, Platforms like this one, we all have a role to play.
So we're not just talking about Onyx Coin here. We're talking about the future of finance. Yeah. Maybe even the future of the world.
It's a big picture, and Onyxcoin is just one piece of it, but it could be a really important piece.
All right, so you've painted a compelling picture here. Onyx Coin. It's got the tech, it's got the vision, but it also faces some real challenges. So let's zoom out for a moment. If Onyx Coin achieves its vision, what does that future look like? What changes could we see in the world?
All right, so imagine a world where financial services are no longer controlled by a handful of powerful institutions. A world where anyone, no matter where they live, no matter their background, can access financial tools and opportunities.
More accessible.
Much more accessible and efficient. Transactions would be faster, cheaper, more transparent thanks to the blockchain. We could see entirely new forms of lending, borrowing, investing, all powered by Onyx Coin.
Okay, so individuals have more control over their own finances, and businesses can operate more efficiently, more transparently.
That's the idea. And it goes beyond finance, too. Think supply chains that are more ethical, more sustainable, digital identities that actually empower individuals, new forms of governance that give communities a real voice. Onyx Coin is just one part of it, but it could spark a huge wave of change.
A wave towards a more equitable, more decentralized world.
Exactly. That's the vision, at least. But of course, whether it actually happens, that remains to be seen.
All right, so big dreams, big potential, but also a lot of work to be done. This has been an incredible journey exploring the world of Onyx Coin. We've covered a lot, the tech, the vision, the challenges. But one thing's clear. Onyx Coin is a project that's pushing the boundaries, challenging the status quo.
It is. And it'll be fascinating to see where it goes from here.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on Onyx Coin? Do you think it can live up to its hype? Are you excited about the possibilities, or are you skeptical? Head over to our website, leave a comment, join the discussion because your voice matters. And that's what Onyx Coin is all about, right? Empowerment, community, and building a better future together. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep questioning. The world of crypto is constantly changing, and it's up to us to shape it.
And it can be a challenge, right, to get those folks on board.
Yeah, for sure. It's a whole new way of thinking.
Right.
But hey, disruption is kind of the name of the game of the crypto world, right?
Right. It's all about shaking things up, finding new solutions.
Yeah, something you mentioned earlier, competition. There are a ton of DeFi projects out there, each with its own unique angle, its own promises. So what sets Onyx Coin apart? Why should someone choose Onyx Coin over all the other options?
Well, a few things. First, the tech. The Onyx protocol is built from the ground up for speed, efficiency, and security. They've really focused on making sure it can handle a lot of transactions, that it's secure, and that it's user-friendly.
Okay, so solid tech foundation. What else?
The community. Onyx Coin has a really active and engaged community. They're passionate about the project. They're constantly coming up with new ideas, new use cases, and that's really valuable. You know, it creates this ecosystem where everyone's working together, pushing the project forward.
It's like the collective brain power of the community is fueling the innovation.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the governance model. That's a big differentiator, giving users a real voice, a real stake in how the project evolves. It's something you don't see with a lot of other crypto projects.
It's that whole decentralization thing again, right?
Yeah.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. And I think that's what's going to drive long-term success for Onyxcoin. It's not just about the tech. It's about the philosophy behind it.
All right, so solid tech, strong community, unique governance model. I'm starting to see the appeal. But I got to ask, what about the skeptics? There are always people who say crypto is a bubble, that it's all going to come crashing down. How would you respond to those folks?
Well, I think skepticism is healthy. It's important to question things, to do your own research. Crypto is still a young industry, there's no doubt about that. And there are risks involved.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not for the faint of heart.
But I think the key is to look beyond the hype, to understand the underlying technology and the potential it holds. And with Onyxcoin, I see a lot of potential. They're solving real problems, they're building real solutions, and they're doing it in a way that's transparent and community-driven.
So for someone who's maybe on the fence, who's curious about crypto but also a little bit wary, what advice would you give them?
Start small, do your research, don't invest more than you can afford to lose, and most importantly, educate yourself. There are tons of resources out there, articles, videos, podcasts like this one that can help you understand the basics of crypto and blockchain.
Knowledge is power.
It really is. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions about whether or not crypto is right for you.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about the tech, the potential applications, the challenges, even the skeptics. But one thing's clear. Onyx Coin is a project that's worth paying attention to. It's innovative, it's ambitious, and it's got a lot of people excited. So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with this thought. The world of finance is changing. And whether you're a crypto enthusiast or a complete newbie, it's important to stay informed, stay curious, and stay engaged, because the future is being built right now, and you have the power to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it can be a tough one to overcome, right? Because how do you convince someone to buy into something they don't fully grasp?
Yeah, it's like you can't just throw tech specs at them and expect them to get excited.
Right. It's got to be about the bigger picture, the potential impact. Like, how can this technology actually make their lives better?
So it's about telling a story, painting a vision of the future. All right, so let's do that. Let's talk about the vision of Onyx Coin. If everything goes according to plan, what does that future look like? What changes could we see in the world?
Okay, so imagine a world where, you don't have to rely on these big centralized financial institutions anymore. A world where anyone, anywhere, can access financial tools and opportunities.
Some more financial inclusion.
Exactly. And it's not just about access, it's about efficiency too. Transactions are faster, cheaper, more transparent, all thanks to the blockchain. We could see entirely new ways of lending, borrowing, investing, all powered by Onyx Coin.
Okay, so individuals have more control over their own finances, businesses can operate more efficiently, and the whole system is just more transparent.
That's the idea.
Right.
And it's not just limited to finance either. Think about it, supply chains that are more ethical, more sustainable, because we can track everything on the blockchain. Digital identities that give people more control over their data, new ways of governing organizations where everyone have a voice.
Wow, okay, so it's a pretty big vision. It's like Onyx Coin is this tiny little seed that could grow into this massive tree, branching out into all these different areas of our lives.
That's a great analogy, and I think that's what's so exciting about Onyx Coin. It's not just about one specific use case. It's about creating this whole new foundation for how we interact, how we transact, how we organize ourselves.
So it's not just about the tech, it's about the philosophy, the ideology behind it.
Yeah, it's about shifting power, moving
Uh-huh.
away from these centralized structures and towards something that's more distributed, more democratic.
Power to the people.
Exactly. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? There are going to be bumps along the way, challenges to overcome.
Yeah, we talked about some of those regulation, competition, education.
Right. But I think the team behind Onyx Coin, they get it. They're not just focused on building tech. They're building a community, a movement. And that's what's going to make the difference in the long run.
All right, so I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to go out and buy some Onyx Coin.
Well,
Just kidding, just kidding.
ah,
But seriously, this has been an amazing deep dive. We've
Mhm.
learned a lot. We've explored some really big ideas. And I think it's safe to say that Onyx Coin is a project worth keeping an eye on. It's innovative, it's ambitious, and it has the potential to change the world. But ultimately, the success of Onyx Coin, it's going to depend on all of us, the developers, the community, the users. We all have a role to play in shaping this future.
couldn't have said it better myself.
So to our listeners out there, stay informed, stay curious, and most importantly, get involved. The world of crypto is constantly evolving, and it's up to us to make sure it evolves in a way that benefits everyone. And hey, who knows? Maybe, just maybe, Onyx Coin will be the key that unlocks a brighter, more decentralized future for all of us.
Until next time, folks.